All right, good morning, scholars. Good morning, scholars. Welcome, everyone. You brave the rain. It's so good to see each and every one of you here. Today, we are excited to welcome to our Impact Speaker Series today, Mr. Thomas Derry. Thomas Derry is a transformational leader who, as an owner and operator and founder of Rising Tide Car Wash, has given more than 90 individuals with autism a place to call home, a place to be in community with each other and to grow as employees. So in terms of giving jobs, he's leading the way in that area. He's also a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient, and I'm proud to introduce him to you. He has an amazing presentation today focused on designing inclusive systems, which he's going to lead you all through. So without further ado, let's welcome Thomas Derry.
I can walk around and don't get ready. Oh, it should be perfect. Nice. Okay. Thank you for the wonderful introduction there, Dave. I appreciate it. Welcome. I'm really excited to be here with you all today, and I'm going to start by just kind of sharing my family and my company's story a little bit, and then we'll go into some of the more practical things that we've done that actually empower our mission of employing people with autism. And I also apologize, some of these slides are going to come up a little weird. But my family started Rising Tide Car Wash because my brother Andrew's on the autism spectrum, and although he's a really kind and caring and confident young man, it became really clear really quickly that in order for him to lead the full adult life that we knew he was capable of, we were going to have to take action. So my dad had been an entrepreneur at this point and this was back in 2012. He had been an entrepreneur for about 25 years at that point, and I was just finishing my undergraduate business degree, and we decided we were going to take action. And I can, I'll be talking more about this, but I think it's better I can show you a little video about the business, and that'll give you a little better sense of it. Sorry, I just click it.
With SWAT investment, so same things.
Oh, hi. Sorry, double.
Now we have. Well, now we have to watch that. With SWAT investing things, it's easy to invest in ideas. Do you believe?
Sorry,
like electric vehicles, renewable energy, or the space economy. SWAT investing things, or your customizable themes, up to 25 stocks in this.
Maybe just press the. Yeah. And sorry, guys. I'm not pressing anything. All right.
With SWAT investing things, it's easy to invest in ideas you believe in, like electric vehicles, renewable energy, or the space economy. SWAT investing things, 40 customizable themes, up to 25 stocks in just a few clicks.
Nice.
The creation of Rising Tide. Hey guys, how's it going today? It was love and duty. Mission of Rising Tide is to empower people with autism and related disabilities through gainful employment in the car wash industry.
Andrew is my younger brother, and Andrew has autism.
Andrew's diagnosis came when he was about 2.5 to 3 years old.
As he got a little older, it became obvious that in order for Andrew to live a full adult life, we'd have to take action.
We call it the cliff with autism, where the school system stops for them.
What up, buddy? Another time.
There are no services. There is no way to the future. So you start to say to yourself, what's going to happen when I'm gone? I was sitting in a car wash one day, and I said, Andrew can do that. So I decided I would create a business, help Andrew where he could work, He needed community. He's surrounded by people like him.
This truly is a family business. So Andrew gets up, he makes his lunch, and he's ready to go to work.
Andrew has a life. He has an identity.
Life in Rising Tide was amazing for me.
My role at this point is advisor. Thomas is the innovation. He can come to me with anything. I can give him advice.
About 80% of our staff is on the autism spectrum. The first thing that we do is try to look at the workplace through our employees' eyes. We designed the panel. Now, instead of having a lot of difficult social interactions, we have a smooth process for both our team and our customers. We clarify the workplace for our team members through a variety of systems, and we try to embed training into the workplace wherever we can. If a team member forgets how to do something, they can quickly scan a QR code, review the training, and get back to work. We use color codes as much as possible too.
Like car wash. Here, I feel like I've just been able to learn more and grow as a person and as a professional.
I want to be a manager. My new goal is to travel by saving money.
It is an accepting place. It's like a proof that people with autism can leave. And you can't just, judge it just by one certain aspect of autism. Because everybody with autism is different. By designing systems that work really well for our team, it's allowed us to scale effectively to our 3 locations, washing over 500,000 cars a year. We've had over 100 team members who go into all sorts of industries, hospitality, retail, to maintenance and auto body repair. Our team members are incredibly talented, but this world has not been designed for them. My hope is that they find the confidence that they can do the things they want to do in this world.
With swap investing things, it's easy.
I really want to show you that ad.
Yeah, right? I could use the mouse too, but it's not on the stage. It's just fading. Right. That's you. Beautiful. All right. So, as you saw in that video, right, the vast majority of our staff is on the autism spectrum, and our plan from really early on was to employ people with autism for about 80% of our staff. And the number is fairly arbitrary, to be honest. The general idea was that we wanted to have enough of our staff be on the autism spectrum that it would force us to really design the business around them. You can't marginalize 80% of your staff, right? So we had to design the business to empower them to do really good work if we were going to be successful. And we looked at a lot of different businesses. We decided to choose a car wash for a few reasons. One, at the time, given what we know about Andrew, his friends, and a little bit of research that was out there as far as what, the general strengths people with autism had, we felt that it leveraged many of those advantages well. And we also felt that it was a really good platform for communicating how capable people with autism were, because it's a community-based business. It's a really tangible service. So, you come to the car wash, if your car is clean or not, if you got good service or not, it's pretty easy to tell. So we felt that if we could tie our mission and that story to that service, it would be easy for people to understand how capable people with autism are. And we felt it was a really scalable business because car washes work in most communities across the US. There's
some 8,000 to 10,000 of them across the US right now. It's a growing market, so we felt that it was something that could scale potentially across the nation. And we felt that there was, in doing our research and now getting to know so many people with autism, there are really a lot of advantages people with autism bring to the workplace. Honestly, many more than are on this slide, and I'll talk through these ones that are you can see. But I think fundamentally everybody kind of understands, or it's been highly publicized, that a lot of people with autism have great attention to detail, really thrive in structured situations. There's also a growing body of research that many people with autism are great with pattern recognition. So they're able to identify patterns more readily than the average person. And then the things that we see really commonly in our employees, it's just a genuine enthusiasm to work, pride in working, wanting to show that they're capable, wanting to show that they're valuable assets to the organization, very reliable, very honest, and inherently many of our team members think differently than a neurotypical person does. So that often leads to different outcomes and solutions that we wouldn't necessarily have thought of without their support. All that said, there's still about 80% unemployment among people with autism, which is really striking, because only about 16% of individuals with autism have significant intellectual disabilities. So there's quite a wide gap there. And certainly many of the individuals that have significant intellectual disabilities are also very employable in the right setting. But really what we see and what we believe the root cause of this is that we as a society look at autism as a disability that requires sympathy instead of a really valuable diversity. We look at it as a deficit instead of a diversity. And that's all perception, right? So it's about how do we communicate and prove that people with autism can be just as valuable and just as good of employees as anyone else, and that there's real business advantages to employing people with autism. So that kind of led us to our impact model, which is essentially got 3 parts to it. First, and most obviously, is the direct employment, right? So we are employing at each store, about 30 people with autism at each location on average. And that's creating jobs, that's creating the opportunity to train people, to pay them wages, to give them the opportunity to grow within our organization. We've learned that when we structure things properly, people with autism can be the best employees in any of our roles, and that's proven by the fact that we have individuals with autism in every single role in our organization, from manager to technician to every single salesperson, every role that we have people with autism in it. And then many of our team members, and I'd argue for most of our team members, most of the people that come through our doors, this is really good first employment opportunity, but something that they should go and move on to jobs that are more aligned with what they want to do, right? So this is great for a kid who's in high school, or maybe transitioning to college, and this is an opportunity to gain some experience, to gain some confidence, to learn how to be a good employee, to get something on their resume, and then go and do something else that's more aligned with what they want to do. And then the third thing that we really try to focus on is being able to inspire other people to copy, right? We want other organizations to do what we're doing. And we feel that the best way to do that is to produce a really good business and have really legitimate competitive advantages for employing people with autism that will compel other organizations to want to do it. And so the fundamental pieces of that are that we're really focused on developing people, right? So when people come and work for us, we're really focused on training. We have over 250 training modules that our team members go through over the course of their employment. We try to make everything really structured, really consistent, and we try to really do a lot of coaching and feedback every day. And those developmental practices is what allows our team members to grow and then be successful, at other employers. You can see here we've had over 100 of our team members move on to other jobs in the community at all different types of organizations, many frontline organizations, but really we've had team members that have become auto mechanics, team members that have gone and become supervisors at Home Depot, that are head of maintenance at a Marriott hotel, like really, really awesome things. And that's the direct piece of the employment, but there's also more of a ripple throughout the community, right? So we create the jobs at the location level. Our employees then move on to other jobs. We also train a lot of young leaders, kids and young adults that are in high school or college or just graduated college that go through our management training program and often stick with us for a couple of years and then they move on to other employment. We've had a couple team members that have gone through those ranks that now hold, executive director jobs and a couple, nonprofits that are focused on autism, some advocacy work as well. So we're trying to, teach people so they can go out and kind of fulfill the mission, outside of our doors too. And then there's the fact that all of our customers get to come and really interact with our team members. Right? This is one of the reasons why we thought Car Wash was an interesting platform for employing people with autism. Is that we have 80% of our staff is on the autism spectrum, but everybody in the community comes through the doors. They get to talk to our team members. Our team members, get to make friends with other local businesses in the community. All the people at the yogurt shop and the deli and the taco shop that are all next to us. They all know our team members and they start to build relationships. And then we've had several of our customers actually have started to employ people with autism at their businesses. One is El Dorado Furniture. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they're like a big furniture company down here, and they started to employ people with autism in their distribution centers after coming to our stores. Several other car wash organizations have also started to adopt this employment model as well. So from an early point in the organization, we took our first store was a struggling old car wash that we renovated, put this model in, and when we bought it, it was washing about 35,000 cars a year. To today, it washes actually over about 170,000 cars a year, and we were able to kind of and that means we're producing a great product, and we also got really great media attention because of the mission. So people learned about what we were doing and wanted to support us. And we're essentially able to leverage that that first step, that first location into appreciating of the asset, which allowed us to take out more debt on that first store, which we then were able to do our second location with. And then our third location, we were able to open with the organic cash flow from the first two stores. So some of the key learnings. So number one thing I can really just I need to emphasize it so much as far as new people that are trying to start a new business, trying to learn how to be social entrepreneurs, really learn how to do anything professionally, is be humble enough to know what you don't know. And be able to ask for help. The more specific you can get with what you don't know, the better. And that makes it a lot easier to ask, the right people for help. I still do this all the time. When we first started, we didn't know anything about employing people with autism. We didn't know anything about car washing. We had to find people that knew about this stuff way better than us and put them together. But because we had a cool social mission and something compelling behind it, people wanted to help us. But even today, I may not have the broad knowledge gaps that I did at that point, but I still have specific knowledge gaps. For instance, we're looking at how do we identify real estate in markets that we're not in all the time, right? So I called and just found connections of the people that do real estate development for Dunkin' Donuts and Chick-fil-A, these other types of retail service organizations, and they want to just talk me through how they do it, right? And that 30-minute conversation with someone who's not kind of a mid-career person, not necessarily a total expert, but has been doing it for a few years. I learned more in that conversation than I could have possibly. It would have taken me months for me to try to figure that stuff out on my own. So constantly, you don't have to be an expert. It's actually better if you just try not to be an expert, and you just try to be really open about what do I need to learn in order to be successful at this, and who can help me with that. And then, proof is in the prototyping, right? So it's another huge skill set, and I'm sure you guys are learning all about this in your program, but learning about, how do we build minimum viable products? How do we build prototypes to really understand and flush out our early assumptions, right? When we started, we had no idea if customers were going to look positively about, interacting with people with autism. There was a lot of stigma at that point around autism still. So we had to test that. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to recruit enough people with autism to do this work. We weren't sure that enough of them were going to be able to meet industry standards as far as time and quality. So we had to test all of this stuff. So, we essentially found a partner, a group that builds car wash equipment. They have a test site actually in Florida City, Florida, which is way south of Miami. And they let us just work there for the summer. And that allowed us to recruit people with autism. That allowed us to work on real customer cars, allowed us to get real customer feedback. And by the end of that 8-week period, we now had a real practices that we tested that work, and B, the riskiest assumptions we had dispelled. We said, okay, these make sense. We can move forward and actually buy a car wash now. And we had something tangible enough to be able to talk to people that this was legitimate. This wasn't just an idea. We had real things, and all of that was done before we made an investment to buy a car wash, which is a much bigger investment than running a training program over the course of the summer at another store. And from a social entrepreneurship perspective, I've been blessed to be able to do this type of work now for about 12 years. I've met a lot of people, made a lot of friends, people that have started social enterprises. And the folks that are still out there doing it are all pretty much exclusively have one thing in common, is that they really built a strong business engine to power the social mission, instead of just having a killer social mission. The folks that were doing amazing impact work, but couldn't wed that to a really good business model, within a few years, either closed up shop, gave the organization to another nonprofit organization, and started working, doing still amazing work, incredibly talented people. And I don't think it's actually has anything to do with the talent of the person. It was the focus early on. Because, I'm sure you can see from the video, and see from what I'm saying in my slides, the reason we did this was to employ people with autism, right? That's the whole reason. We wouldn't be in the car wash industry if it wasn't for that. And it's really easy to get super focused on, well, that's what I'm doing. So let me focus all my attention on that impact model. And of course, that's super important. But it doesn't work unless the business model works. The business model is the oxygen for everything else. Without it, it's irrelevant. So you really have to focus on the business. And if you're out there right now, you're thinking about a cause you're trying to push forward, and you're not sure about a business model yet, that's okay. But it's what I think is one of the best practices is to try to identify a business model that looks like it's a really strong business model that you can then bolt the social mission onto, that they work together really nicely. That's, I think, a really critical factor. And then, of course, constraint breeds creativity. This is true in any design challenge, right? The more we constrain things, the more we come up with novel solutions. And we did that with our 80% of our employees being on the autism spectrum, and the fact that my family pretty much put all of its savings into the car wash, so we had to make it work. And that allowed us to really just persevere through challenging things and come up with some good solutions. But in general, when you're going through the process of trying to, let's say you find a good business model, and now you're trying to wed it to a social mission, you can do that, and it may feel like, well, there's a lot of constraining factors, limiting factors, how do I make this work? You don't have to look at that as necessarily a bad thing. That can be a really positive thing. This is supposed to say the business value of a social impact. And there's some, I'm talking about the business model, but there's some really beneficial things, advantages to being a social entrepreneur over quote unquote traditional entrepreneur to start. And that's typically around getting access to people to help you that you otherwise would not really be able to get access to. Like I said, when we started, we didn't know anything about car washing. And we got the president of the largest car wash manufacturing company in the world to, let us use his test facility, to let us use all of his training curriculum, to let us really use a lot of the assets of his organization at no cost because he cared about the mission. That guy gets pitched new car wash concepts every day by every group that's going to open 1,000 car washes and yada, yada, yada. And he doesn't do those things for everybody. And that's because of the social mission, right? And so inherently, you have a better story to tell than someone who's just trying to make money. It also lets you get more talented people in the door early on, where you may not be able to pay them what they could make at a larger organization, but because there's impact, they're willing to stick it out with you. And you're really able to get media attention, and usually, everybody's looking for a good story, something that's uplifting. And social entrepreneurship is, I think, there's so many wonderful examples of companies that have gotten great press, which brings all sorts of resources and opportunities from it because you have a good story to tell. So if anybody is, and I'm happy to talk more about this after too, but if anybody's interested in like workforce development, social enterprises, I think there's a couple key things to really think about. So it's focusing on strengths, right? So what strengths does that group bring to the workforce that can make them a better talent pool than the alternatives? That we're choosing, again, a well-established business model, that we're really focusing on the quality of the service, not just the social impact, because if we had really good social impact and shitty service, well, we end up with just a feel sorry for thing that somebody might buy once, but won't buy all the time. And then we use our story to differentiate the service. So we tell a story that makes us a novel business opportunity or a novel service compared to everything else that's in the market. So where other car washes have to rely on giving away free services or heavily discounting to get attention, we're able to talk about our social mission and get attention that way. And I'm just going to keep beating on this because it's so freaking important. But again, focusing on the impact, the business model over the impact model, and that's true even once you have a profitable business. I actually have a recent story here, me being guilty of not following that advice. So business is healthy, right? We've got 3 car washes, they're all profitable. And for the last couple of years, you're like, okay, good. Business model is all fleshed out. I can really focus on getting deeper on the impact model. We built all this awesome training, all these awesome systems. And that was, I'm not saying that was a bad use of time, but it blinded me a little bit to some things that were happening in the industry that we really should have focused more on and kind of lost some momentum because we did it. So what that is in the car wash industry, you may or may not be familiar with this if you're currently a car wash user, but there's a big thing now is subscriptions. So you buy, you pay like a one price, $30 a month, you can come and you can wash all month long, right? So that unlimited car wash model has become like the staple model in the industry. And people who are really good at selling unlimited car wash passes and building large subscriber bases of, let's say, 5 or so thousand members per location, they've been able to really attract big investors and grow really rapidly. And we didn't focus on that. We were like, we have a good business, our customers are happy, let's focus on what we're doing, developing our team members and such. And now we're going to, and I'll talk about this in a slide or two, but now we're looking to franchise, we're looking to maybe convert other car wash groups. Our thinking was that we say there are other car washes that would maybe like to convert to our model. It's a better employment force, the brand differentiator and such. So we started to talk to people, our friends in the industry. And what they told us was that, Tom, everybody in this industry knows you have the best employees, people that most of us would much rather work with than the typical staff that we see at our car washes. You have a wonderful story to tell, and we know you can get these car washes approved in communities that sometimes don't want car washes, which is a huge advantage for this business. But we also look at it like we're gonna have to make a sacrifice in the profitability of the business because you don't sell passes. You have no proof that you can really build these large subscriber bases. And frankly, that's why we're in the business now. That's all we're really focused on. So until you can do that and prove that, nobody's gonna convert. Once you prove it, you think the folks that I talk to think that we'll have a line out the door of people that would love to convert to this model. And that's, again, my family's eating well, right? The family is doing well. We don't actually need any more money. So that's the way that we were thinking. So, okay, let's just focus on impact. But again, once again, it rears its head. If the business model isn't exceptional, people aren't interested in doing it. So now when we go to grow, we lost sight of something that we now have to spend the next few months really getting good at selling memberships. So, take it for what it's worth, but that's been my experience. So like I said, we're starting our process of franchising. We're going to start franchising next year. And the reason we picked this model was because we've had over the years hundreds of families affected by autism that have reached out to us and kind of want to do this in their community. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations that have constituencies of people with autism that they're looking to employ. And there aren't really any other good business models, amazingly enough. There aren't really any other good business models out there to date that you could buy and replicate in your community that are dedicated to employing people with autism. There are really two other franchises that have started with the idea of being a disability employment focused, but neither of them have sustainable business models. They have to be run as nonprofits. So we have an advantage there. So we feel like we'd be offering something to this community that would be really valuable. It also gives our team members the opportunity to grow, right, as we expand and as we kind of build a new business entity in franchising. It gives more opportunity to our current team. Talked about other car wash operators already. And one of the cool things about franchising, right, is that it can become a platform to look at other businesses. So car washes are expensive, right? They're expensive to build, they're expensive to buy. It's a certain type of investor that can do that. So inevitably, as we go out in the market and we start to sell franchises, we're going to develop a lot of leads. Most of them will be unqualified for car washing. With that said, we could then develop lower tier franchise opportunities. So maybe you can't afford a car wash, but you could afford to do a quick service restaurant, or you could afford to do a landscaping business or whatever it is. And that way you can kind of use all that intellectual property and all those leads that we've developed as well through that initial franchise offering to offer different businesses. So that's my story. I have now some slides here on inclusive systems. Where are we on right now?
We're about 25 minutes out.
25 minutes out. Okay, perfect. So what actually makes our business work effectively, allows our team members to deliver high quality service, allows them to grow effectively, allows us to onboard them effectively, is probably the number one core competency we've developed, which is building inclusive systems. And what I mean by that is that we build a system where as broad of a group of people as possible can operate it. So, to be a CFO of a company, you might still need a CPA, but you don't necessarily need 10 years of experience if the system is developed properly. So with us, we're car washing, you don't need any experience to come in. We just need someone who wants to work hard. And that's the way that we develop in our organization. So you can think about it as we're designing systems where you need the minimum viable talent level to be successful in the system. And there's a few pillars of doing that well. So first is clarity. There's a really great quote that I use a lot that the job of the manager is to turn the implicit into the explicit. And that is really, fundamental part of leading people. We, so many things we think are obvious, but they're not really obvious. They're only obvious to you, right? So really doing the work to design a system in a way where there is clear expectations, everybody understands what the expectation is. There's transparency, we're being as transparent as possible as far as where we're going, how we're measuring those expectations, and then we're trying to guide people through the process using clear feedback and coaching as much as we can. And then making things as objective as possible, right? So we take those expectations and we say, what are the actual criteria to meet those expectations? What do we actually need to meet those expectations? And we make measurement systems that can measure that effectively. And we make things as fair and unbiased as we can. So what this looks like on a daily practice is we are constantly looking at our operational systems and trying to eliminate unnecessary steps, complications, and barriers. So this picture actually, you can see these little yellow things, they're little clearance bars, right? They look like it's stupid, right? It's obvious you should have that. But for years, we used essentially like a PVC stick that you would put next to a car to see if it was too tall to go into the car wash. And honestly, that worked fine for a while. It was an extra step that we should have knocked out, but it worked until one day we had a new greeter. She was kind of unsure of herself. A guy comes in with a really large truck and is essentially bullies her and says, like, I can go through, I've been through 100 times. Okay, lets him go through. And he goes into the car wash, gets stuck on the first arch. Right, so his top of the car hits the car wash arch, shuts the car wash down for about 45 minutes as we try to get this truck out. Yes, there was a system in place there to make sure that didn't happen, but there was an unnecessary barrier, which was that we had to convince the customer that it was too tall. That car comes in, he whacks the thing, makes a big noise. There's no question on whether or not it's too tall or not, right? So it can be something as simple as that. It could be something much more complicated for sure, but this is like an easy example of what I'm talking about. It takes no skill or effort to operate that system, where the other one, it takes some skill and some effort and some persuasion and some work. So another good way to think about inclusive systems is the hiring process, which hopefully many of you have either gone through or will be going through soon. So many hiring processes inherently are ambiguous, right? It's not clear what the role that you're signing up for really looks like. It's not clear what the job responsibilities are or what the actual requirements are for you to get hired, right? There's just a bunch of potential qualifications that are on the list, and usually they're trying to sell you on how great the role is, but it's not really clear what the role actually is from your perspective. There tends to be a lot of bias in the hiring process. That's a lot of the hiring manager relying on if they like you or if they think you're a good culture fit, instead of things that are actually matter for meeting the criteria of the role. And there's also tends to be a ton of unnecessary steps. You end up with 5, 6, I've heard as many as 8 interviews before you get hired, right? Do you really need to meet with every one of those people individually? Probably not. So there's unnecessary barriers. What it should look like, right, is, and how we try to do it, is before someone even opts in for an interview, we're going to send them really clear expectations of this is what your job is going to be. You're going to be outside on your feet. You're going to be out in the heat. You're going to be working with customers. You're going to be working with your team members. You're going to be doing some physical labor. what the job actually entails. We have videos for some of the roles too, for roles that we don't necessarily expect the team members have great reading comprehension skills. But we're really trying to set that expectation. Thank you. No problem. We're really trying to set that expectation before I waste your time or you waste my time, so we know that, you know, this is something you actually want to do. Relying on absolutely the only necessary information that you need from a background perspective. Does the role really require a certain degree? Does it really require a certain amount of years of experience, a certain professional background? Some roles certainly do, but vast majority of them have things in their job descriptions that aren't actually necessary. Did it really matter that you went to that university over this university? Does it really matter that you had 3 years of experience versus 1 year of experience, so on and so forth? Interviews being objective, right? So what that can mean a lot of different things. For us, there's, I think, 2 really great tools that are useful. And one is a job audition style interview, right? Which is, you're actually going to try the job, right? So car wash, that's an easy thing to do. We can bring you out into the car wash environment. I can show you how we clean the car. You can show me that you can do it, right? That's an easy way for us to show even, you know, a nonverbal individual, can they do the job or not? For our management positions, we are doing essentially a scored interview, right? So everybody gets the same questions. There are clear right and wrong answers for those questions, clear things we're looking for in those answers. So that way, and we always have multiple people together, like ideally 2 people conducting those interviews together, right? Because that allows us to hedge against bias. I can't tell you how many times I've started one of these interviews in the first 10 seconds, like, I love this person, I hate this person sucks. And then within 20 minutes of the interview, my perception of that person is totally the opposite. Because we went through the questions, it forced me to ask specific questions, forced me to look at our scoring criteria and say, did they actually say the things that because, you know, we're such humans are just biased by nature, right? It's not a good or a bad thing, it's just who we are. We all have bias. It's how we're wired. So I can see myself in these interviews a lot of times wanting to perceive the way a certain person is saying a certain thing because I, for whatever reason, liked them in the first 10 seconds of meeting them. But by having a scorecard, a clear scorecard on the interview, you can say, yes, they did say that, or no, they didn't say that. And then we can have a much, much more objective way to kind of counteract that bias. Trying to get back to people quickly and have as few interviews as possible. I've seen companies that, and worked with a couple companies that have implemented these objective hiring standards, and they've cut their interviews from having to do like those 8 interviews, all these different like get to know you interviews, to now they do like 2 or 3 max. And that's saved a lot of organizational resources. It also saved a ton of the candidates' time. And then something that I think companies often overlook is a really nice onboarding process, right? So I don't know how many of you started a job and you just got thrown right into it. You're like, here you go, good luck. So that's, you know, that sucks, right? And that's not good for the person. It's not good for the organization. Creates generally a bad taste in the person's mouth right away, or at least a lot of unnecessary anxiety. So, you know, starting by having onboarding material available before the person starts, so they know, hey, how do I check my schedule? How do I put in time off requests? What are the rules of the workplace? Who do I go to if I need help? Knowing all those things before I even set foot on site makes it a much less stressful experience. Pairing that person with a buddy that those first few days that's experienced that can answer some of the more tacit, you know, things about the workplace that you're not going to have necessarily in training, you know, structured training materials. And a really simple thing that we do that actually is like really helps is we just throw a pizza party every time we have a new employee, right? A shift change. That way everybody, you know, congregates around this pizza, welcomes this person. nice, and everybody loves pizza, so it's like a nice little experience for everyone, doesn't cost as much. So like a good way to bring people into the organization. So, I've talked a bit about the generalities of designing inclusive systems. I want to now talk a little bit about one of like the best tools, and the tool that we use all the time to actually do this. And that's working with quote unquote extreme users. So you can look at people with autism as extreme users of organizational systems, in that they have the same needs as anybody else, but their needs are more pronounced than the average person, which allows us to more effectively design around their needs because they're more apparent. You can say, okay, not working with people with autism, you're just working with, whoever. You can also look at this and say, who is struggling the most with this system, right? So the person who is actually struggling to do something, you don't look at them as, well, they suck. You look at them and say, hey, this is a person that can help me make this better for everybody. Because I can guarantee you, if they're struggling, there's 10 other people that are struggling, just they're able to mask it better. So you're not actually doing anybody any favors by pointing the finger at that individual. You're doing a much better job if you work with that person to redesign the system. And the way that we do this, again, just like we build prototypes and minimum viable products for businesses, we do the same things for smaller organizational systems. So that way we define what we need the system to do with clear measures, and then we figure out what is the most efficient way for us to get to that information to do it well. Sometimes that's something as easy as think aloud, right? So I give you a checklist, right? This is the way that we currently do it. You try to do it, and you tell me where you're struggling, and we talk through it. Sometimes, especially for us, it happens more frequently, is that the person who is struggling may not have the words to describe what's really wrong, right? So in that situation, we give them more of a physical prototype and say, here, go break this, go try it and do it, and we can watch and say, okay, well, where are they actually struggling? Where does it fall short? And then we can continue to iterate and design until the system is working for that person who's struggling the most, who's having the hardest time doing this. And then we have relative certainty that everybody else is going to also be able to do that thing. There's also no shame in starting with a template, right? So buying something off the shelf, a standard system, and then saying we're going to modify it. Right? That can be a really quick and effective way to speed up your learning. So for me, I'm always looking at organizations and how they do things, so I can bring that back to my company. Things that are like readily apparent for you, that you can like see in your daily life. So retail services, right? These are systems that are designed for people with no training, general public, right? So companies that are good at that and build good customer experiences are good at building inclusive systems because they have to work for everybody with no training, right? So this is the Walmart self-checkout area. If you ever go to Walmart, you see they have those little green and red beacons above the self-checkout, right? You can see really clearly in 2 seconds, hey, that one's full, this one's ready for me, right? That makes it way more efficient for them to run. It also makes it way better for me as a customer to know where the hell I'm supposed to go, instead of just waiting and being anxious about where to go, having to talk to and ask somebody where to go. It also works, so airports are probably like the best example of they've really invested in building really clear systems for so many reasons, right? From a safety perspective, we also have lots of people that have never been to the airport, go through them, right? So they have to be really clear. But even, you look at this example, right? This is a pilot that has thousands of hours of training, and they still took the time to make the stripe and the line of exactly where this plane is supposed to go, right? Because that makes it way easier for that pilot to do his job every day. It makes it way less likely that that pilot is going to veer off course and fly into another plane or whatever bad thing can happen, right? So it's not just for people who have no training, it could be for people who have tons of training too. But these types of systems driving clarity. Again, this is a good example of turning something that's implicit, right? The pilot knows he has to go to the gate, but he might only implicitly know how to get there. This is now very explicit, the exact way to go, right? So just a simple example of that. And then consumer products, right? You open an app that's really intuitive, really easy to use. You can look at it and say, what's making this so easy for me? Why is this so simple to operate? And a lot of times you can take that and bring it into other aspects of your life. So here are some examples of tools that we use. So color coding is a big part of it, right? It's an easy way to communicate where something is supposed to go, to call out, make it very easy, very visual, and allow the workplace kind of to speak to you. So in this instance, right, the blue spray bottle, the window spray bottle, correspondingly blue rag to use to use the spray on. The laundry bin is blue, so we don't contaminate the towels, they don't get mixed up. And then the blue laundry bin sits on a blue dot, right? So super simple, but makes it where somebody can come in the first day and know exactly where that laundry bin is supposed to go. Visual systems, right? So just organizational tools. This is an example of a training board or the planning board that we use at one of our stores. So we write out the schedule, right? So everybody knows what role they're in, why they're in that role, what their objectives are for the day, the training for each person that's is the goal for the day, any cleaning assignments for each person, that's the goal for the day. And that makes it where the manager can kind of come in, write all this out, and the whole team can see it really, really clearly at the beginning of the day. Working with checklists, right? There's a wonderful book by Atul Gawande called The Checklist Manifesto, which again, it essentially makes the argument that we use clear systems, even if we have a ton of training. Atul is I believe he's a neurosurgeon by training. He's kind of dedicated his career now to building medical checklists for hospitals. But he talks about, and we see this too, if you build really strong checklists, we use this, think about this as a tool for clarity. It allows us to take those things out of our brain. We don't have to think about that anymore, right? We don't have to think about, like, I have to wipe down the bathroom, I have to clean the floors, I have to remove the trash. I just look and I go do it. That allows us to free up our brains for the more important stuff. In the example of a tool's work with the Checklist Manifesto, and their essentially pre-operation safety checklist that they designed. Yeah, the nurses and doctors all know that they have to sterilize the equipment, that they have to wash their hands, they have to do a series, I think it's like 12 or so steps before they start the surgery. But the doctor's thinking about saving this person's life, right? So they may not be thinking about that in that moment. So by making it explicit, and I don't have to think about it, now I can focus on the task at hand, and the really important sterilization work still gets done. Having multimodal training, right? So having training that is visual, that has audio and video. This is critical too. This allows you to successfully get across your points to all different types of users. A lot of our team members don't have great reading comprehension skills. So the read aloud functions in our training is really, really important. The pictures work really well for a lot of our team members too. And that's not just for team members that have autism, right? I know my most effective way for me to learn, even when I'm like reading a book, is to listen to the audio version and read along with it. Right? That allows me to retain the information as well as possible, right? So having multi-learning training is great. And then also trying to invest in whatever new technologies that you can find technical to make systems more effective. So this is an example of we use computer vision in our security cameras to track the wait time at each station. And that allows us to go back to the camera footage and use that camera footage essentially as like a game film. So if something was really good, we had a really good service time, we can see why, who did what, and we can praise them. Or if not so good, an opportunity to coach those people. These are some examples of how we design these systems at work. I could probably talk for 30 minutes on each one of these, but really quickly, our team members know they have to move at a certain rate to get through the cleaning process, to the interior, to the cars. And at first, we were just saying, move quicker, right? That was the initial way to train people to meet our speed standards, constantly trying to push pace. But sometimes that gets taken too far, right? There is a reasonable speed that we want them to go at. So then we move to having just a timer, right? So a countdown timer, so we know, okay, this is how much time we have left in the car. But again, that wasn't clear enough because there's some 46 steps that our team members have to go through. And they weren't sure in a lot of cases, were they moving fast enough to get to the end of the process in time? It just created anxiety and more confusion. So we built a timer that essentially for each category of step, drying down the car, doing the windows, vacuuming the car, doing the rims, there would be a light associated with it. So this is the step you should be at. And that solved the problem. Now the team knows how to move at the right pace, not to stress too much, not to stress too little, just to do the right amount because it's as clear as we can make it. I don't have time to go through the rest of them, but we can talk more about that after. What does it mean to be an inclusive leader, to actually do these things? Humility is the most important part, right? I know I don't have the answers. I know I think a certain way, my team thinks differently, and it doesn't really matter how I think, it matters how they think, right? Because I'm not the one who's doing the work every day. It has to work for them. So I know that I have to listen to them. If they bring me a problem, I shouldn't just write it off and say I know better. I should listen. I should understand their perspective and know that they probably have a better answer than I do. And then get curious as far as why people think a certain way, right? If you bring humility and curiosity together, you end up usually being really able to solve almost any problem. And that's the same thing as far as being a learner versus a knower, different way to think about it, and feeling personal responsibility for doing these things correctly, right? So if somebody's failing, it's not on them, it's on me, right? Every time, it's not on them, it's on me. And by just kind of taking that approach to always taking responsibility for the failures of the organization, it forces you to continue to do better. And the payoffs of doing all this, beyond just having good systems, is first and foremost psychological safety, right? So one of the fundamental practices of psychological safety is that it's okay for me to fail, right? It's safe for me to fail, for me to try, for me to go out on a limb because I know I'm not going to get beat up for it. And I think one of the most powerful practices in that is when someone's coming to you with a problem, someone is struggling, how you respond to that person, right? Are you going to say, nah, work harder, try better, that's not my problem? Or are you going to say, okay, let's work on that together, let's fix that? That process, and that happens every day at our company, is what makes people feel safe to continue to bring us problems and allows us to get better by doing it. So it really creates a virtuous cycle. Inherently, we're building systems that are easy to operate and easy to replicate. So that means it's more effective for us to scale the organization. It's also, as people leave, we're not relying on some expert employee who can do everything to run business. We're relying on an expert system. So if somebody leaves, we throw a party, we're happy for them, good for you, and we just put the next person in. Okay. Did I make it on time?
So we are back. Hopefully you had a good opportunity to stretch. We are now going to transition into the activity that Thomas has prepared for us. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Thomas. Can we give it up for him as he comes?
Good. Okay, so we'll do the activity first and then we'll have Q&A after. Yeah. Oh, there we go. This will make sure that's on the top. Okay, again. Okay, this is what I'll do then. Perfect. So first, we should break up into 5 groups. I think there's about 40 of you, so groups of 8. Can you guys do that without my help? Yeah, you already count.
Yeah.
We count 1 through 5 and we
Yeah.
count
So,
1, 3,
4,
5.
2, 3,
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1.
okay. So let's go ahead and get into groups based on the number. So 1, so let's go ahead and take this wall. 2, so let's take this section. 3, let's take the back wall, 4, back corner, and then 5. 5 over here. Okay, so everyone has a group.
All right, we're all in groups. Does everybody have markers? Getting out the markers?
So everyone, we have a couple of items coming around. We have sticky, open notes, in addition to markers. Everyone listen up. So once you are set up in your station, Thomas is going to now provide you some instructions about what you're going to be doing in your groups. So,
All right.
make sure you can hear.
So, we are going to identify a broken system. So, I'll give you some examples in a second, but a system that isn't functioning as it should. We're gonna try to analyze, well, how is the system broken and what are the key impacts of that? We're breaking up into teams. We're gonna brainstorm potential approaches to the problem. And the goal is to try to think about how would we understand the problem from the user's perspective. All right. So, think about a system that you can like readily, imagine from your life, right? So it could be a hiring system. Maybe it's a cashier process at a grocery store. Maybe it's how inventory is being managed at a bar or restaurant. How the onboarding process is in an organization. Maybe you work at a current job right now and there's something that really annoys you about your daily work, and you can use that as an example. But so take a couple minutes and think about, try to identify the system that you want to try to break down. And then look at the problem, try to think about some ways we can understand it from the user's perspective and some ways we can try to improve it. All right. I think that's the. How long do we have for this thing?
About until 11:40.
Okay. So we have about 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Oh, 25 minutes.
25.
Same.
So you can go ahead and begin.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. We're gonna make the timeline put together 15 minutes with Grace. Yes. Pick whatever one you want.
What do you guys think?
All right, everybody, wrap it up here. Okay, whoa, all right, here we go. Let's wrap it up. Wow, look at that. Are we ready? Here we go. Now we're gonna take a few minutes and everybody can kind of go through what they chose, what they thought. I know you're shaking your head no, but I think you're gonna go first.
Okay. Okay, so basically we created a light system on public transportation that identifies each stop by flashing. So the system is broken because it's not built for all individuals, but it's supposed to be used by all individuals. Basically a lot of people like maybe can't read the small writing when your stop is coming up, or they just don't even realize that the bus is like stopping for a stop versus like a stop sign or a light. So what we would basically create is like, here would be the doors, I don't know if all you can see, but, and then off the top, kind of like an elevator system sometimes where you can see what floor it's on. There would be like blinking lights for stops, and it would be like in bold font what stop you're at. So it would be really obvious where you are. And this would help deaf individuals, first time users, and people with bad vision, because it would be really obvious and everything would be really bold and like accessible.
Somebody's gonna have to take the mic.
So, today we chose like the process of hiring, and, I went with my personal business. So, the business is called Social Bloom, and it's about, like helping business market on social media. And she first started off with AI review, and the AI will review the resume. And then we wanted to give them like a personality test, and that will see if they are,
See if they match.
see if they match. And then we'll go into an interview with them, and then we'll have a tryout with them, which is like the first day. And then we'll have a group conversation. We'll talk to the employees to see if they did well. And then we'll have a personal follow-up with the person that's doing it, that wanting to apply the job. And then we'll have a resilience test, and I'm gonna give the mic to Danny because we'll talk more about it.
No, so the resilience test is that we're gonna put them through some obstacles and stuff they have to do. And we're gonna see how they handle it, because, we wanna make sure that Social Bloom has the right employees. So, for example, Chelsea said, maybe they have to make 10 videos in maybe 30 minutes, something like that. And let's see how they bounce back. And then after that, we have the contract, and then we celebrate if they pass.
really quick, the interview question, we have the first one, tell us about yourself. And then the next would be what experience do you have? And then tell me a time that you failed and how did you handle it? And then, what your core values is, what motivates you the most? How do you think you will contribute to the team successfully? And why do you want to work with us? And that's it.
That's awesome.
I know we have tried out, I think we learned a lot in that process, and if resilience is an important part of
What makes a good employee, right? You have a test score right there in the process. Awesome. 3.
Oh, so for our group, we actually did my initiative, which is about providing support for people with disabilities outside of college. And it's really important to me because I was born with a motor disability called diminutive pons, and I was told, apparently doctors told my parents that I would never walk, and like I run half marathons, so honestly, that was wrong, but like, I realized that without, it was due to the support of like my family and everyone that I like started to believe in myself, but I realized that, especially growing up, I realized that supports culture outside of college, so that's why I felt the need to start this initiative, and I'm really excited for it.
Through navigation of the system, we looked into how it was broken. And that is because there was a lack of education about disabilities, which leads to believing that there's competencies and aspects of their lives that there is not. And they are almost left in the feeling of inadequacy. And from their user's perspective, they have no support and they aren't able to do certain things, and which leads them to this feeling, which impacts the workforce, because over 80% do not have jobs, and there's not the required healthcare and other accommodations like transportation. And this is led because of the lack of research and education on the entire spectrum and all the disabilities that are on there, which comes into support beyond college. I don't know if you want to read this to say.
So the mission statement is to allow people with disabilities to thrive in a world made for neurotypical people.
And how we're gonna achieve that is through our action steps. The first thing is life coaches that are trained and educated in different kinds of disabilities, so that the people have the required resources to go to. Then we're going to tackle the problem of lack of education, so by spreading movements of awareness and education. Then we'll expand research groups to different, like the entire spectrum of disabilities, physical, mental, and so on. And we also borrowed Annalise's idea. Where's Annalise? Shut up. Yeah, she decided to create a LinkedIn for people with disabilities where they can all connect with each other. So thank you very much.
You took an actual person's perspective, right, and you systematized it into a way that you can help a lot of other people. That's phenomenal.
Okay, so I guess in a way, jumping off of what we've been talking about today and what they spoke on, I really wanted to focus on the public education system and specific reference to the special needs programs in schools. I have a younger brother who is autistic, and we've been working with the same teacher since me and him were in elementary school together. And it was very heartbreaking for him to get to graduation, and we started looking at college for him to tell us that he cannot go to college because he does not have the right intelligence for it, and he didn't have the right scoring. And we were so furious and frustrated because we're like, we know you, you know our family. Why haven't you told us that we were at this issue, or why didn't you help him get through that issue? Because you knew that that was something that we wanted to do. You know his goals and his ambitions. But the problem is that the system that we have in place is not only just poor education, but they have to get them out and do the bare minimum system that is not helping them get to where they need to be. So what we need is proper education to really put them in, really get them above and beyond, and not only in our teaching, but in our efforts to really help them get to where they need to be. And I said the root cause of this issue is systematic biases in place from old negative biases for people with special needs and on the spectrum. So instead of really coming up with a business idea, we looked at certain things that we need to talk with either the state education system or county by county if we have to, or school by school programs. And just different things that we need to start implementing to be able to get them where they need to be. So we focus on the curriculum itself, so different trainings from teachers, helping them find out how to teach them properly, how to work with them properly, how to talk with them, which there are systems in place for that, but we might need more of it, because I see teachers who genuinely hate their students, and I feel like that needs to be better managed, because there's no way you should be fighting with your child who is, your student who has special needs. And then we need to help them figure out where their students should be, proper placements put in place for them to test them, to help them figure out if they are meeting the goals that they can actually meet, because they put them on such a lower idea of who they can be that they don't even try to push them any further. And that was the biggest issue with my brother, because we saw how smart he was, we saw how great he was, but they let him get away with so much and they pushed him so far back, thinking he could never get any further. They told him at the age of 3 that he would never be able to talk, but he's making lots. And so then we have student programming, so things that can help the students specifically by building community, as we said, as well. Getting them really involved with other students, because students don't see them as regular people. If we get them more involved with each other and putting programs in place to help keep students aware of them, then they wouldn't be able to get that bullying or the abuse, because students will be seeing them in every day. Instead of putting them in completely different classrooms and keeping them away from the other students to hide them away from the bullying, why not show them that they are just people like you? So, and then also higher education programs, really fully preparing them for a future and letting them know that they have a future ahead of them, and where they're at now isn't what is going to be there for the rest of their lives. And then in between things, parent involvement, like I said, really need to get the parents involved, because we should have known. On-track programs and progress tracking, and creating safe spaces for them. So that's on the teacher side and for the other student side. It is our job to make sure that they are getting where they need to be, and that they feel involved, and that they know that they're people, and that they're seen as people like everyone else.
I know that we're addressing the low expectations. I feel like that is probably like the single biggest thing that almost everyone with disability faces, yeah. And now group 5. How many of you guys either drive on campus or know somebody with a car on campus? Just raise your hand. Okay, cool. We wanted to tackle the problem of parking on campus. So right now we know it's in current free-for-all. We wanted to transition to building by building and paying for a reserved parking spot. This could be anywhere between $100 and $200 per semester for a parking spot. Right now it is free to bring a car on campus. This would reduce the time spent looking for a spot. I know you guys can home anytime after 8 p.m. You guys probably have spin around campus more than 3 or 4 times to not find a parking spot and then park the H lot. We'd like to use H, J, and dirt lot as overflow parking. People that would not like to pay for parking or reserve parking, these are an option. People that have the money to pay for reserve parking, it's a reserve parking spot. If there's somebody were parking your parking spot, that is a quick phone call to campus safety, and the person will get a ticket, parking your parking spot. And you won't have to worry about reserve parking. That was it. Today. All right, now we do Q&A. All right, everybody can take your seats. We wrap up soon, and you guys have an opportunity. If you have any questions for me, ask away.
Thanks on that.
Oh, man, my targets.
Yep, so now scholars, this is your opportunity. If you have any questions to ask Thomas, please feel free. You've heard the story, you've heard his presentation on designing inclusive systems, you participated in your groups, you should have tons of questions. So please, feel free to ask.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Whatever. So how do you, I only have one question, and is, when you like creating a mission, how do you relate that to your personal story? So you can get like more investors and people to relate to.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I didn't have to like really do a whole lot of gymnastics there. That was, it is my family story, and that was what really the whole inspiration of it was. But I think in general, right, I've yet to meet a social entrepreneur that didn't have some sort of personal connection to their mission, right? Even if it, let's say you want to protect the environment, right? I'm sure you have a reason why you care about the environment, right? What drives you there? Experiences as a kid or with your family, or what lights you up, right? You gotta find that thing that makes you real. What really makes you excited about doing what you're doing. And I think once you do that, it's pretty easy to weave it into the broader concept.
I can project, it's okay. I'll just pick one. How do you protect your staff on the spectrum? So how are you managing how your employees are being treated? Because I've seen a lot of cruelty and of people on the spectrum being taken advantage of, whether it's from whether it's higher up in staff or just from the passersby clients using the like the girl who was being bullied into letting the guy go through. How do you guys mitigate that?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a few things that we do. First, having the open. I think probably the most important thing, right, is having a culture where the vast majority of our team members are really dedicated to the inclusion of everyone, right? So 80% or so of our staff is on the autism spectrum. Virtually everyone is neurodivergent in some way. And so very often people are there because they want to be in a safe space, right? So they are self-policing in many ways. The second thing is that we have managers, and we're selecting for managers who really care about the mission, but also are open, this type of open, humble, curious person that I alluded to in the presentation. Because that makes it easy to come to, right? It makes it easy for someone on our team to come to them and say, hey, like this person's saying X, Y, and Z, making me feel uncomfortable, making somebody else feel uncomfortable. And then we swiftly act on those things, right? And very often, I think the things where we see these interpersonal issues become challenging it's very often between two autistic people, right? Because they're both having a different experience in the same moment, essentially, right? One person has one perspective, another person has another, and we have to try to mediate, right? So that becomes like the first thing. Sometimes it's somebody who needs to be removed, right? They can't be part of the team because they're creating an unsafe space for the rest of them. That happens. It's very rare, but it does. And then as far as with customers go, yeah, I think every once in a while we have to tell a customer not to come back for that reason. I think that's probably true in any retail setting. I mean, most of the time when we have customers that are rude or taking advantage of our staff, it's it's somebody who's like a big dude yelling at like a small girl type thing, and it's that's what we have to say. Hey, look, just do me a favor, don't come back, and they get mad. We watch all of these cars, so they are always coming through. Just flag one of them down. And that's kind of how we have it there.
Thank you.
I know you mentioned, I know you mentioned your training program that your employees go through.
Yeah.
Do you also help them in the job like application process, like resumes and that for like their goals outside of your car wash?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, we need to do more of that. So we do that, but not in a formal basis. So like our managers and our team members will always help like with the resumes, and we do a lot of references, obviously. Most of our team members, and so one thing I didn't mention that comes in the presentation is most of our recruiting comes from the school district, right? So the transitionary age team members are the ones that's like, it's the most efficient way for us to recruit people. And inherently, many of them have, like a job coach or, like somebody who they're working with to use this opportunity as a first job. So a lot of times they're handling their leading point on that, and then we're just coming in and giving the reference, writing, a nice letter, talking to an employer. But sometimes in some cases, certainly when we have older employees and they don't have those resources anymore, then we're actually helping them. But it's kind of like a case by case basis right now. I think it's something that we need to work on a little bit more. Yeah.
Awesome, and scholars, for the sake of time, we'll take one more question.
I think it's the whole idea is fascinating, especially how I was listening to like you talk, and I think it's fascinating how you were able to go to the root cause, which is inadequately under the stigma of people with disabilities, and I think it's also maybe for me that like adults are like people think adults are good, like adults are confident, and I don't really know. I think I'm in the process of understanding my systems and the root cause, and I know there are so many systems overlapping, and there's so many causes, and it's really difficult for me to map out my system. And I would like to know how you came up with mapping your system.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
So I would think about it not in terms of a broad system, but in terms of step by step, brick by brick type thing. So we didn't address everything at once. We addressed one thing at a time, starting with things that were impacting the business the most, right? So when we first started, that was having a clear way to train and break down and maintain consistency for the interior cleaning process, right? That happens, hopefully a lot of times every single day. And it's the vast majority of our team members are working in that system, so we have to really get that right? So once we figured that out, then we move to the next most pertinent thing, right? The thing that is impacting us the most. So guiding customers into the conveyor, greeting customers, kind of these functional baseline systems, right? Because they're the ones that are impacting us every day. So same thing in life, right? The things that I'm running up against most frequently are the things that I should address first. And then as we kind of build consistent systems, good training, ways to handle these things that happen all the time, we can get to more nuanced things, and been doing this for about 12 years now, so most of those bases are covered, but still, on a very regular basis, we have team members who are still struggling, right, with certain things, so it's always an opportunity for us to make something better.
So from my understanding, it's like a step-by-step process, and you're learning along the way.
Always, that's right.
Yes.
Watson, we have a gift for you, but I just wanted to say I'm trying not to cry right now because this is something that really hits home for me. Thank you so much for sharing you and your family's story and for really putting your all into it, because there are so many people who leave family behind, who leave people behind in this because of their disability or because of their background, and what you're doing is just so beautiful and so important. And as you are protecting the courage of so many people, we here like to protect each other's courage, and you're here protecting ours, and we like to keep our speakers and in gratitude for your
Awesome, thank you.
This is over.
Awesome, scholars, give it up for Thomas. I'm truly grateful to have you here. We're truly grateful to have you here. Your story, again, is inspiring. The work that you do is inspiring. And as Navia said, you are protecting the courage, sir, of so many people, creating space and opportunity for them to be their best, most authentic self. So again, for that, we thank you. Scholars, you have been an amazing audience. Can you give it up for yourselves? Amazing audience. With that, again, we want to thank you so much for being here, and always keep Watson in your heart when you're at work changing the world.
Thank you, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you all, scholars. What we're going to do now, we are going to prepare to transition outside for a quick photo. I think the weather has held up for us, so we are going to take Corinne's instructions on the photo. Corinne, go ahead and give us a wave, and let's go ahead and get a couple of photo shots outside.
Thank you.
Awesome.